¿Qué onda? Thanks for watching Doing Life with Jenny. If you're new here, I just moved from the US to Mexico to the state of Hidalgo. Today's video is all about the ins and outs of building a house here in Mexico, but it's also going to be beneficial if you plan on buying or renting an already existing house or apartment. Let's hop into it because we have a long list of notes to get through. So there are three types of construction in Mexico, going from the cheapest to the most expensive option. The first, the cheapest, is interés social. Currently in 2023, that will cost you 6,896 pesos per square meter. The kind of middle of the road option is called interés medio. This year, it is at 14,583 pesos per meter squared. And the most high-end option is residencial. This year it is at 23,762 pesos per meter squared. So what does that mean? No, it doesn't really affect the quality of the construction per se. The best I can explain is by giving some examples of materials used in the US. So the cheapest option, interés social, would be like if your builder were to put in linoleum as your flooring for your kitchen and your bathroom and laminate for your countertop. And then the middle option, interés medio, would be like if they used... Sammy! The dog found a water bottle. The middle option, interés medio, would be like using man-made stone countertops like Corian, and for flooring like a wood laminate. And then the most expensive option, residencial, would be like using real hardwood flooring and like granite or quartz countertops. And the cheapest option would have like your plain Jane, get it at Walmart, lighting fixtures. And the most expensive option would be something that's like in style. So that's what that is if your builder asks you or you see it mentioned in doing your research. These dogs have not made a peep for the past 12 hours, and now that I'm trying to record. Did you find a water bottle, Sam? So one of the first steps you have to take is finding an architect and someone to actually build your house. So I think like most people, you're going to draw out what it is you're looking for. Now listen to this next part correctly. I 100% recommend that you find an actual architect, because in many cases the albañil, which is the construction worker that mostly focuses on like the brickwork, is going to tell you, oh yeah, I can do that for you, but their specialty is in putting the blocks together and the cement work. You're done. But their specialty, again, is putting the blocks together, the cement work. They obviously have experience, but they're not going to be thinking about like the electrical aspect of the house and the plumbing and how that all fits into the big picture, causing you problems down the road. I have seen this firsthand. My house versus some of the other houses being built in the area. So I strongly recommend, again, you find an architect and a constructora, which is like the building business. So they have like everything you need, or if it's not already a part of the team, like they have independent contractors whom they trust that they can bring on board. They cannot tell you how many people have passed by and told me, not like, oh yeah, your house looks nice, just being friendly, like noting the quality of the work in my house versus some of the others in the area. Because the albañil and probably your friends are going to tell you, oh yeah, I can do it, or the albañil can do it for cheaper. Yeah, but it's going to come at a huge sacrifice. And honestly, the constructora was very reasonably priced. Okay, so now that you're thinking about like the design and everything, let me share some random things that don't necessarily fit into the other things in my notes. Random thing number 1, there tends to be dead spaces in Mexican homes. For example, there might be like a corner near the stairs that really isn't useful, or some extra wasted space outside of the bathroom. So again, please try to plan it out yourself and then hire a professional architect, because someone that knows what they're doing is at least going to know how to utilize that dead space, or even better, not create it to begin with. Random thing number 2, and I'm sure this has to do with saving money, is that a lot of the time, the bedrooms might be right off of the living room and or kitchen. So for example, instead of having a hallway and then having access to like the private quarters, the bedroom door or bathroom door would be like here or here. And if that's fine with you, then great, because like I said, it does save you some money. And random thing number 3, really plan out the little details before they start building. What do I mean? I've been in houses where there wasn't room in the kitchen for the fridge. Like even brand new construction. So like the fridge would be around the corner in the hallway, or the fridge would be like around the corner in the dining room. Or a lot of times the living room seems to be an afterthought and the furniture doesn't fit. And this is partially the owner's fault for not like buying furniture that fits in the space. But just like the layout of the living room isn't conducive of buying furniture and putting it and setting it up in a way that makes sense. Also going along with this, plan out how many outlets you want. They are super stingy with the outlets in Mexico. For example, until I realized what they had done, I caught it just in time. If I had been a day or 2 later, I wouldn't have had outlets. It was just going to be this outlet and this outlet. So I added one here so I can put a little lamp inside of the door. And I added this one in case I want to mount the TV on the wall. And then in my bedroom, so a decent sized bedroom, they were only going to have these 2, one on each side of the bed. Well, what about my keyboard? What about my computer desk? So I had them add this one and this one. So everything else from here on out in the video is going to be by category. Let's start with the exterior. So as I've mentioned plenty of times before, you usually don't get a fence in Mexico, although you can. You usually have this cement wall called a barda. And basically, the front is going to be nice and finished, but on the side, you're going to leave it plain, because if somebody builds here, well, you're going to be sharing this wall with them. And technically, like, they have to build their own wall right up against yours, but it's still getting covered up, so there's no need in spending money to finish that. Next is that if we were in the US, my house would be right in the middle of my land, and that's how I drew it. And the architect is like, Jenny, what are you doing? They're like, we can do it like that, but it's gonna save you a lot of money if at least one wall of the house is shared with the barda. A lot of people will make it so that the barda comes up to the house on both sides. That way you're cutting down the cost of the blocks by a lot, which is great if you really need to save money, which I did. So I chose to do it on one side, but I also want a lot of natural lighting, and well, there goes most of your lighting if you can only have windows on the front and the back instead of at least on 3 sides. Next, if you're shopping for homes online and you read the descriptions, it might say 1 garage or 2 garage. That does not mean you're getting a garage. That means you have a spot for that many cars to pull into your land. So for example, this is my garage. It would be considered for 1 car, although if I wanted, I could pull one over here, but then there goes Ruthie's play space. I mean, there's more space, but that would take up a lot of her play space. What you doing, Sam? Sam, you trying to get Ruthie to play? Now, can be things that are garages, are similar to garages, or a lot of people put a roof over this to make it more like a carport, and it also creates better security, so nobody can like climb over this with a ladder and hop in, because the roof would prevent that a little bit, although they could go over in a different spot that didn't have the roof. That poster is for the electric company, by the way. Whenever you call to get your electric hooked up, you have to put a neon poster, mine is flipped around, with a code that they give you so that they can come hook it up to the right spot, I suppose. Mine isn't installed yet, but there will be a gate, obviously, going across here to keep Ruthie in nice and safe and to keep people from just walking on in. But like 98% of the time, to open, you're going to have to open it, pull out, get out of the car, close it, get back in the car. It's honestly kind of annoying if you use your car a lot. There are some automatic ones, but obviously they cost more. And you probably came to Mexico to save money. The next thing in regards to the outside is that it's very common to have bars called rejas over the windows and or the doors. Mine will not have it since I do have the barda. It's more so common if your house is right up against the street. Like if you live in a city center and people are literally like walking on the sidewalk right up against your house, like what you would find in something like Chicago or New York City. Next is that having screens on your window is not the go-to here. If you want those screens so that the mosquitoes and the other insects aren't coming in, you need to request that specifically. Also, you're going to have your own personal water tower on your roof called a tinaco. Those black things up there. And the tinaco is going to go on some kind of platform, whether it's metal or the builders actually build it as part of the house to give it more height. That way you have better water pressure. It's important for the builder to know what they're doing so that they place the tinaco in the right spot so that the construction can support the weight of it. I'm going to put it like where 2 walls meet, like the bathroom wall meets the bedroom wall, not in the middle of the bathroom because there's less support for the weight. Also, in regards to water, I highly suggest you buy or rent a place with a cisterna, which is where like your extra water is stored, because the water, look at them go. Because in Mexico, it is common for you to run out of water. Varies place to place, but it's this hole in the ground. It can be of cement, or it can be similar to the tinaco on the roof. And basically the water gets pumped into your cisterna or your cistern from the city, and then you have a little water pump that pumps it up to your tinaco. If your neighborhood doesn't have a sewer line yet, you may have a fosa, which is a septic tank. I almost had one, but the neighbors and I cooperated to get the sewer line put in. Next, on the outside of your house, usually right off the kitchen, you're going to have a patio de servicio, or a service patio. This is where your washer, and if you have one, dryer, go, as well as the lavadero, which is like an outdoor sink where traditionally people wash their clothing. Many people still do. And it can kind of be partially enclosed. Mine will have like a little roof coming out, kind of like a carport sort of thing. And this is usually also where your gas tank is going to go. It could also go on the roof. And then it's also where your hot water heater is most likely going to go. Not always, but most commonly. Kind of transitioning our way indoors. Sammy, shh, shh, shh. Like I mentioned, it's possible that the barda walls are shared with the house walls, giving you less options for windows. Whatever you do, make sure you have some cross ventilation with the windows. So you can see I have a huge, this is a huge window door, and then opposite another door and window. Because if you only end up with a window or windows on one side, it is going to make a huge difference in the temperature in your home. For example, in my apartment, on the back, there's nothing, it's a solid wall, and in the front, there's a door in the window. Since there is no cross ventilation at all, it gets quite toasty in there. It helps a little bit if I have the door and the window open, but not much because it's on the same side. There's probably a 15-degree difference in Fahrenheit between the temperature in my house versus my apartment. And it's literally across the street, not in a different city, not in a different state. And the last thing before we transition fully inside is that in the bathroom, it is not the norm to put in the exhaust fan. They do exist, just know you have to specifically request it. Otherwise, make sure your bathroom has a window and that you leave it open while and or after you're showering so you don't get mold. Moving into the bedrooms. 2 things you should know here. A full size called matrimonial is the standard. So they're most likely going to kind of build the bedroom size and place the outlets according to a full size bed. So maybe give the builder an idea that, hey, I want a king size bed, so they leave plenty of room to get around the bed on all sides, and so that they don't put the outlets right behind where the bed would be. Also, closets are not part of the construction. In the US, basically, the closet is a mini room inside of your bedroom. Not in Mexico. It can be, especially in your high-end homes, but for your average home, no. So you're either going to have an armoire or a built-in. So I had to hire a carpenter apart, and they're going to build me a closet here. Well, it's gonna have 2 parts. It's gonna have like a closet, desk in the middle, and then another closet on the other side. Speaking of closets, there's an overall lack of storage in Mexican homes. It's not typical to have a hallway closet, which we would call like a linen closet for your bed sheets and your towels. There's usually not a coat closet whenever you walk into the living room, or a little closet near the kitchen for like your broom or your vacuum. There's no attic, there's no basement. So a lot of people will build their patio de servicio, keeping that in mind and using it sort of as a storage room called a bodega. As we make our way to all things kitchen, please note that once the builders put the roof on, it is tradition to have a party. So now we're back in the kitchen, obviously. It doesn't have to be like this, but usually the gas tank is on the patio de servicio, and again, that is usually right off the kitchen. That makes the most sense because then you can run it straight to your stove. And gas stoves and ovens are the go-to, although induction is becoming more common. Speaking of stoves and ovens, a lot of people don't have an oven. They just have like the burners on the countertop, or if they do have an oven, it's just used for storage. So just something to be aware of, especially if you're renting and it's furnished. If you like to bake, keep an eye out. Dishwashers and garbage disposals are also not standard. Yes, they exist, but if it's something you're interested in, you need to make mention of that to your builder. Otherwise, by default, they don't think about including that sort of thing. In the US, common practice is for you to have your stove and then your microwave above it. And the microwave has like the hood or exhaust feature. In Mexico, I haven't really seen that setup. Again, of course it can exist if you want it that way, but it's more common to have the microwave just on the counter, on a little shelf, or some people don't have microwaves at all. For your sink, I'm inserting the default, and usually it's just going to have one tub, whereas in the US, it's going to have like 2 tubs. Of course, you can get other types, but I'm just showing you the default. Okay? Maybe I should have led with this, but the kitchen is not included in the cost of the house. Usually, if you buy or rent or build, the default is just to have the sink hanging out of the wall as the default. If you want anything else in your kitchen, you need to bring that up, and it is going to be on top of the cost they already quoted you. Countertops like quartz and granite do exist here, but they are very hard to find. Like, not even Home Depot sold countertops. Why? Because a lot of times kitchens are kind of like furniture, where you go to the store and you buy this like pre-made set of cabinets that comes with a countertop on it, and you take it and you just sit it in your house. Maybe you have to fasten it to the wall. So if someone is going to build their own kitchen, so it actually fits in this space you have, because that would make more sense, right? A lot of times they have something similar to this, and then you pick out a tile to stick on top of here. I'm going to go with polished cement. And then inside of the cement, you might just build a cement shelf and leave it open, or some people hang curtains on them. Or you can have custom cabinets put in, which is what I'm going to do. I might wait on that because you'll see in a video or two from now. But eventually I'll have cabinets down here. As you probably know, you cannot drink the water in Mexico. You can buy a filtration system to put under your sink. That way you can use the tap water. It is very convenient, but it's not like the default. So if you're interested, again, let your builder know. Speaking of water, you're only going to have hot water in your shower, whereas in the US, you have hot water in all of your sinks too, both the kitchen and bathroom sinks. I'm not even sure if that's a possibility here. I've never personally seen it. Okay, let's head back to the bathroom. Sorry, it has the worst lighting because it just has the tiny window. In the US, if something is lit, actually we're gonna leave the bathroom because it's the most echoey. So in the US, if something is called a full bath, it's because it has a bathtub, toilet, and sink. In Mexico, a full bath is just a shower, toilet, and sink. Bathtubs are rare here. Again, you can find it, but the builder or the architect isn't going to like automatically think about that. The default is also a pedestal sink. That makes sense in a half bath where it's just like for a guest, nobody's getting ready there. I know it has to be for economic reasons, but they are so impractical. Also, something to consider is that a lot of times if a home is 2 stories, the main floor only has a half bath, and then the second story is where you will have 1 or 2 full baths. Think long term, okay? When you are 80 years old, or when you trip on the sidewalk, because I can almost guarantee you're going to trip and maybe break a leg or an ankle because of how crazy the sidewalks here can get, are you going to be able to climb those stairs to take your shower? So I strongly suggest making sure there's a full bath on the main floor. The last thing regarding bathrooms is that there might be a wet bath. If you're not familiar, it's where like the shower isn't its own little enclosure. The bathroom is basically a huge thing of cement, maybe with tile, maybe not, and whenever you turn on your shower, like the toilet and the sink are getting wet. That is not the default or anything, but I just wanted to bring it up because they do exist. A couple more random things before we wrap this up. Overall, homes in Mexico are smaller than in the US, so if having large rooms is important to you, make sure that is clear to the architect and give him actual measurements. Because whenever you say a large room, that's going to mean something different to you versus him or her. And then lastly, when it comes to furnishing your home, you're going to be disappointed. Yes, you can find what you're looking for here in Mexico. It will just take you a little longer to find it, and you will most definitely pay a pretty penny for it. When it comes to things like furniture, it's going to be very outdated looking, even though it's new. Or if you find something that looks more modern, it's going to be very cheaply made. And it also seems like a lot of the stores sell the exact same thing. Of course, you can find something unique, but it's like everyone has their little default style. I've also noticed that when it comes to things like bedspreads and curtains, again, it looks outdated or the options are limited. I actually brought my own from the US. But I will say, I think the options got a little bit better, at least on Amazon, from the time I started shopping online in the US until I actually moved here. Yeah, so that's all for today's video. I really hope this was helpful because it's one of those things you don't know what you don't know. So how are you going to know to tell your architect, hey, I would like a kitchen? Because for you and I, that seems like common sense. If this video was helpful, give it a like. If you would like to see more content about me living in Mexico, see the final product here in a couple of weeks, be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. See you in the next video. Say bye, puppies. Say bye, Gringa. She's having a nap. Say bye, Sammy. He's chewing Ruthie's leash. Say bye, Ruthie. You silly guys. Okay, now you can play. Now make your noise.